everyone, this is Professor Benjamin, and in the last session of this course we cover renewable energy. So renewable energy is energy that can be replenished relatively quickly or within a human lifetime. So we consider renewable energy trees, we consider renewable energy wind, air, water, geothermal. They are all renewable types of energy. And there is a lot of resistance with the use of renewable energy. And some of the reasons that there are these kind of hiccups with renewable energy deal with the fact that we don't know it's the unknown. We're not used to them. We are not familiar with the new technologies. Our grid systems are not set up to really use them. We have to use more than one because they don't produce the intensity of electricity production usually, or energy that we're used to. So we might need to use multiple forms to get the same type of power. And a lot of people just aren't okay with that. So that's what we're going to discuss this week. So renewable resources and energy, here is of course the description. Right here, OER textbook chapter 5, alternative energy, is what we're going to read this week. And then of course we have a PowerPoint with it. I just want to address one thing. A lot of students are now starting to go outside of the course to look for materials, and I'm not okay with that. You need to use the materials I've given you. You didn't have to buy a textbook for this course. So the textbook chapter is right here within the module. You also have PowerPoints that go along with it. So everything that you need within the module is here for you to succeed. So do not go outside of the course to look for materials. Everything you need is right here. Here's the PowerPoint. This is about the Belo Monte Dam and some of the side effects of creating dams. Just like with non-renewable resources, there are downsides to renewable resources. So renewable resources aren't perfect at all, to say the least. And I'll go through a couple of those issues, but this one deals with the creation of dams and the issues with that. This video shows you about tidal energy, which is not a newer technology, but it is one that's coming up, becoming a little bit more mainstream, where we put actually wind turbines underneath the ocean surface to capture the energy, to catch the energy of waves. Sometimes also we'll have turbines that are built into the cliff face, and as the wave hits it, it turns the turbine. So there are ways of tidal energy. And so here's another issue with going under the sea for clean energy. There are of course downsides to this as well. Wind energy, and here's one article about the downsides of wind energy. And I'll talk about that in another minute or two. Also, China leading the global race to make green energy. This is the idea that this is that idea of not the Green New Deal, but the idea that we can actually start investing in really cool new technologies out there. And maybe this will drive creating jobs for people in the United States. As if we decide to switch our energy source to all green energy, we very well may and be able to create more jobs for people to install these new types of technologies, etc., to do research on these new technologies. All of that branches new ideas, right, and drives new thought processes that can also drive the economy. Solar roadways is another really cool thing that's out there. And I'll post that video. It's a little bit of a kitschy video, but it is really cool. And in the Netherlands, they put in a solar bike path, which is really, really cool. It's not a new technology, but a newer technology. Of course, there's downsides to solar panels, right? There's downsides to the fact that a lot of that energy has to be stored in batteries, and batteries are, of course, an environmental nightmare because they contain heavy metals. So there's a lot to do with that. And then here, can green energy drive the economic recovery? And then, of course, we have to talk about electric cars, because electric cars are the wave of the future, right? Is that you see a lot of new hybrid models and pure electric cars coming on the market. But one of the big issues with electric cars are the fact that you actually have to, if you don't pull your electric charge from solar, then it's not a clean system, meaning that you're still pulling electricity from the grid, which is usually coal and natural gas are used to create. the electricity that we traditionally pull from a traditional grid. If you're not doing that, then you're still contributing to the system, even though you have a electric car. If you're not pulling that electric from a solar grid, you're still contributing to greenhouse gas emissions along the way. So lots to do. All right, so a couple types of renewable energy sources. And as always, we have our initial post due by Wednesday, response post due by Friday, and there will be some questions on your final exam about renewable energy. So here we go. So what are the types of renewable energy? Well, there's wind, there's water, there's sunlight, there's ocean tides, there's waves, there's biomass, and then there's geothermal. So there's tons of different types of renewable energy out there. Hydropower, wind, solar, biomass, geothermal, here are the ways they work. And so here is what are some of the issues with the transition to renewable energy. Of course, renewables are diffuse and intermittent, right? If you don't live in specific areas where you receive a large amount of sunlight or wind, those technologies are not viable to you. So that's an issue with them. The technology to harvest them, we just really haven't invested enough time and energy into looking into green technologies the way that we probably should have. Our infrastructure is not set up to transport renewable energy, so that's an issue, of course, whereas it normally, right now our grid system and our electrical systems are set up to for non-renewable resources. And of course, there are benefits, far few environmental impacts. There are environmental impacts, but of course, there are far fewer ones. And it is an infinite energy source. Well, if the sun stops shining, we're dead. And so if wind stops blowing, then we're in trouble because wind drives almost all of our climatic experiences. So if waves stop going, then the gravitational pull from the moon is not correct and we're in trouble. So there's a lot involved, is the fact that it's always there. And of course, unfamiliar technologies are a big deal. Is that when we're not familiar with something, humans don't like change. And we learned this in the first section, first chapter of the text, is that we don't like change. And with change, people are unfamiliar, so they don't gravitate to it, right? Is that if you talk to people about, solar, a lot of people aren't familiar with it, so they just shy away from it. The economies of scale, the scale is still too small. We can't mass produce energy. We can, but it takes up a lot of space, and it's hard to, of course, transport that energy. So, for example, it's localized energy, meaning that we really our grid system is not set up enough to transport solar energy that we produce in Nevada to New Jersey. Just not set up that way yet. It could be, but it's not. And of course, we externalize the cost of fossil fuels, is that we give people rebates to use fossil fuels. And that, of course, has to do with big businessmen who have their hands in the government's pockets, etc., right? Is that gasoline, we don't pay the true cost for gasoline that goes in our cars. If we did pay the true cost for gasoline, well, then we would definitely drive a lot less. And we also subsidize creation of larger vehicles in the United States so that we can burn more gas. The miles per gallon standard on cars in the United States is way lower than acceptable in a lot of other countries. And if you look at cars in other countries, Ford makes types of cars that cannot be sold in other countries because their mile per gallon standard is so low. The average mile per gallon standard in a lot of European countries is in the 30s and 40s, whereas in the United States, we're in our 20s, which is crazy that they sell the same type of car and they modify it so that it meets better gas consumption standards in Europe. It's just crazy. And of course, limited consumer knowledge and understanding. So there's a lot. And I go through all the different types of renewable energies and I give you advantages and disadvantages to them. Now, on the final exam, I may ask you to tell me what the advantages and disadvantages are to one type of renewable energy. And I don't want you just to put no fuel, no pollution. I want you to explain that. You can't just put bullet points. You need to actually really explain what those advantages and disadvantages are to those types of renewable energy. Okay? And so there's a lot, I added in a lot of little additional articles, etc., to help you with that. As you move through the solar panels, etc., and the ideas of what they are. Oh, and I actually did include those solar roadway videos here in this PowerPoint. So really cool for you to check out that video on solar roadways. I think you'll really enjoy it. It's really cool, the idea to have that. And then, of course, geothermal is another way, tidal power. So there's a lot of additional videos and information I give you in here that you can look into in terms of renewable energy that then translate into renewable electricity or energy production. Okay, so as always, have a great week. I hope you look forward to looking through these. Remember, while there are renewable energies produce less greenhouse gas emissions, they do have some downsides. So for example, wind turbines, they do kill birds, and a lot of wind turbines are located in the path of migratory birds, and with that they kill a lot of migratory birds, which is an issue. They also give off a low drone sound, like a zzz sound, and that can actually be destructive to a lot of individuals' hearing. So that issues with that. Solar, right? The batteries that if you're off the grid and you do have batteries to store your electricity production, to store the energy, that's an issue. The solar panels themselves, recycling those in the future, if everyone starts putting solar panels on their house, that's going to become an issue. They are almost like cell phones, right? Is that they have to store energy and produce energy, and the photovoltaic cells have some issues with them in terms of recycling and production. The other thing is that dams, when we dam water, we produce massive issues for the environment. There are a lot of environmental consequences to damming river systems, is that they flood behind them, and then they have silt that holds back. Fish can't migrate. So there's a lot of issues with creation of dams. The other thing is that with tidal power, we have to be careful because, under the water we now have turbines, so fish migratory patterns are a big issue. So lots of issues with renewable resources. While I fully embrace them, there are downsides to everything. So you need to look at what those advantages and disadvantages are. Have a fantastic week, and I look forward. This is the last session of the semester. So I hope you really enjoy the material and start thinking about the course as a whole and what you enjoyed with the course. Have a fantastic week, and as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.